Hello and welcome to Castlevania Chronicles, a remake of the original Castlevania, which first saw release outside of Japan in the year 2001. As I'm sure that opening cutscene made clear, this is a PlayStation 1 game. But it wasn't always. That's what these arcane options here are all about. And to demonstrate my point, let's select original mode and watch that cutscene again. This time we're seeing how it was presented in the year 1993, when this game was originally released for a computer called the X68000. That computer was never released outside Japan, so this game was also doomed to exclusivity in that country. When they ported it to the PlayStation 8 years later, they added a bunch of stuff and changed some things around. But this original mode is, as far as I can tell, a near-perfect emulation of the X68000 version. And it has this beautifully animated pixel art cutscene. They also did a great job with the CGI version, adding a bunch of fake film grain effects that a lot to mask the way the PlayStation usually presents hideous cutscenes. But either way, that is the ritual that resurrected Dracula, which occurs every 100 years. So now our job as Simon Belmont is to go kill him. And I'll be doing that on the Arrange mode of this game, which is where they added all the PlayStation changes. I just wanted to show off a bit of original mode first so that we could see just what was changed. Like this title screen with the spooky font that I like a lot. Not all the changes they made were for the better. They start off showing us things that are rather faithfully recreated from the 1986 original, but modernized for the current year of 1993. Backgrounds are extremely detailed, and the music is much more lush than the NES could have handled, but otherwise a pretty solid approximation of Castlevania 1, which is notable because this game veers away from its source material early and pretty much never looks back. This is a very different experience from Castlevania 1. You would note from looking at Simon Belmont, his sprite is about the same color palette as it was in the original 86 release, which is to say it's almost monochromatic. Looks very drab compared to everything else. But they did make the extremely important changes of allowing us to change directions mid-jump, and also allowing you to whip downwards while jumping, either directly down or at an angle. But other than that, it's pretty much Castlevania. Enemies burst into flame when killed, you take 2 damage and fly back when you get hit. So before we go into Arrange mode, our main event, let's see how we can change it. They offer adjustable difficulty for Arrange mode. It's easier than original mode by default, but it also has difficulty levels, which only affects the way that damage scales throughout the game. You can set your starting life count, and you can turn off the time limit. An archaic holdover from the NES, which serves absolutely no purpose whether we have it on or not. So I just left everything the way it was. And this special options menu was added to the American and European releases of the game. It's got an interview with the producer, the esteemed Koji Igarashi, And the unavailable option there is an art gallery that gradually unlocks as you complete stages of the game. I'll be sharing those bonus features later on. But that's the end of that options menu, back at the title screen of this Konami game. I'm just for no reason pressing up, up, down, down, left, right, circle, X. To bring up this options menu, it's got a date, that's the release date of this game in Japan. We can change it to whatever we feel like. Changing the year does nothing, but the date and the time, that actually is useful. So keep in mind that this menu exists for later on. The display mode option, that just allows you to decide whether you want the HUD to be transparent or opaque. Normal mode is transparent, trim is opaque, which is how it looked in the original Castlevania. But I'm leaving it on the transparent option, because I don't want it to cover any of the game's beautiful artwork. So now we can begin arrange mode, but there's one last secret options menu if you hold L1 and R1, which allows you to select your sound module. All three of these options are different versions of the soundtrack that we heard back in original mode. But arrange mode has a brand new soundtrack. So in order to hear that, we have to leave this menu and then go back into arrange mode without opening the secret menu there. But if for some reason you hate the soundtrack to arrange mode, you can switch it to the original mode soundtrack. No harm, no foul. I think both versions of the music are worth showing off, but it is certainly the most controversial aspect of Castlevania Chronicles, and we'll be hearing why shortly because we finally made it to arrange mode. We can switch the buttons. There's only 2 buttons in this game. You can switch them to your liking, and you can turn off the ability to pause the game if for some reason you want to do that. Everything's set up now. We are finally ready to begin the LP. The first thing we're going to notice is Simon's new design. He's much more colorful, particularly in the hair area. And now, one of Castlevania's most iconic theme songs, Vampire Killer, as you've never wanted to hear it before. It's the Techno Dance Club remix of Vampire Killer. Or maybe like the anime Final Confrontation version to go with Simon's anime hair. I have no idea. It's the only track in the game that is this off, and it sets a really weird first impression. I imagine a lot of people heard it and immediately looked up how to change it. But I think it's cool for what it is. We saw Castlevania 1's secret system has returned. If you duck in specific spots, like before the drawbridge there, bonus items will appear that give you a big old mass of points. Slain enemies now explode instead of turning into a series of flame sprites. Same with candles. That seems to be all the major blasphemous changes. Wait a second, did I just see that right? Let me just take another hit here. But I think, yeah, getting hit doesn't knock you back, it just makes you bounce straight up. I mean, they can change the character design and the music, but can you even call it Castlevania without the knockback? Well, I'm no expert, but if we were to take a look at the Famicom release of Castlevania 1, we would see that it too features an optional mode where you do not get knocked back when you are struck. Now, this is not the original Japanese release for the Famicom disk system. This footage is from a Famicom cartridge that was inexplicably released in the year 1993, but it goes to show that even back then, not everyone wanted the risk of an instant death from every single attack in a brutally difficult platformer. And hey, Chronicles is being faithful to a Famicom release of the original Castlevania, just not the one most people are thinking of. So, it's cool. It's great even. Secret money bag hidden in the last brick of that Panther platform, and a huge mural which also depicts Dracula's love of panthers down in the corner there. I first saw this game at a Games Done Quick event, and I was blown away by how great everything in it looks. I really did not understand why I'd never heard more about Castlevania Chronicles before, and it seems to be mostly because of that 2001 release date, after the PS1 had been replaced by the PS2, and the Castlevania gameplay had been replaced by the Metroidvania style. It's quite a shame, really, but now I get to experience it fresh, after having ignored most of this series. We've just hit our first door, which acts as a checkpoint, and I'm using my sub-weapon for the first time. Get to chuck knives at people at the cost of 1 heart apiece. Now, we're doing fine on health, but we should probably still go get the wall meat that everyone knows is hidden in the corner here. Oh, damn it, Dracula! See, this is why you don't bury food in your walls. Do you want fleamen? Because this is how you get fleamen. A fully prepared meal is still waiting for us in the opposite wall, and it's a good thing because now we need it. Didn't need it before. Just gotta find the staircase and we can escape from that portal to the Fleaman dimension. There's a candle underneath the stairs there with a big heart inside. Don't know how to get to that big heart. There was a guaranteed drop of a stopwatch there that you have to catch in midair or it's gone. But my favorite part is the merman swimming by in the water right there. One of the mermen we killed drops a cross necklace. Picking that up kills everything else on screen. We also replaced our sub-weapon with a holy water that one of the fleamen dropped in all the chaos of the last room. And there's this weird platform. When you stick your face in the water down there, it summons a crown for 2,000 more points. We saw that the holy water leaves a little patch of fire on the ground that constantly damages enemies, and also that the underwater creatures breathed fire because fire equals water in Castlevania. Everything's upside down. Breaking that block in the corner of the wall allows us to go back a room and undo all the progress we just did in the underground area. So I don't know why that's an option. Moving right along up the awkward staircase, find another cross inside the candle there. Also pointless because the only enemy in that room is a constantly respawning bat. But that brings us to the final stage of this block. This game is separated into 8 blocks, and each of them has 3 stages. Just hit 30,000 points by popping that eyeball, which grants us an extra life. And I just noticed that I accidentally set my lives to 1 by default. Don't need that extra life anyway, but I will fix it and set my default lives to 3 for future videos. And that ghoul that was chasing us despawned, which means it's boss time. That 1 block under the stairs always has a Roman numeral 2 in it. And we have the axe sub-weapon. With the 2 upgrade, we are able to have 2 of our sub-weapon on screen at the same time. These are things that are very obvious to people who've played a Castlevania game before, but I haven't, besides Symphony of the Night, and that is a very different game from this one. So I'm catering to people like me. Anyway, this boss. Hitting it turns it into a cloud of bats, which you can destroy. Serves no purpose, but it's pretty cool. It actually behaves differently if you hit it with an axe or your whip. If you hit it with a whip, it just flies to a new location and reforms. But if you hit it with your axe, it tries to dive bomb you while it's reforming, which is a little more dangerous, it takes a little more time, but this is a ridiculously easy boss of a very easy introductory level. Difficulty will be ramping up soon, so that even this easier arranged mode will be very hard. As we wrap things up here, I'm going to switch over to the sound test of the original mode so that you can hear this boss fight music as it was back in the X68000. We already heard that mode's version of Vampire Killer, but I want to provide the option to compare all the game's tracks, so that's how I will close out each video. I'm also going to provide a link to an LP of the original Castlevania that this is a remake of. It's less than a half hour long, it won't spoil anything because they changed so much, but it will provide some useful context to see what they're referencing with the design of this game. So I highly recommend you check it out, it is very enjoyable and well done. And I'll see you next time for more Castlevania Chronicles.